When I started becoming, when I quit my job to be a comedian and a writer, I booked myself a 3-week tour.
Yes.
With our very good pal and very
Isaac.
funny friend, Isaac Whitney.
Yes, the best.
We had a combination of clubs, independent shows, and churches over 3 weeks. And kind of a standout moment for me was we were doing an independent show, and they put Isaac and I in a Super 8, which motel, which is common. I don't choose the Super 8 on my own.
Yeah.
It's not a great motel.
Sure.
But it is.
It has its value in that it's cheap.
It has its value in that it's cheap.
Yeah.
And I understand, honestly, maybe I'm like, yeah, give me more money and I'll just stay in this motel. Yeah. It wasn't my favorite experience, but whatever. So we did that. I slept there. The next day I drove a few hours, performed in a church, and I got to the hotel and they had booked me a 2-room suite.
Oh my gosh.
For just me.
Yeah.
Just me. They knew no one else was coming, but just if you need some extra room, maybe you want to sleep in both beds tonight. I don't know. Also, when I walked in, there was like this gigantic gift basket.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every snack, they had asked me beforehand, what snacks do you like?
Yeah.
There was iced coffee in the fridge. It was one of those hotels that it was like a Residence Inn. So there was a full kitchen. And there were iced coffee and Perrier, which is my 2 drinks of choice, and chips and salsa, and a bunch of free clothes.
Clothes?
Yeah, like swag from their church.
Oh,
like
my gosh, I'm so confused.
Oh yeah,
It's like a Gucci hat.
I was like, what?
just like a hat. In fact, I gave I think Gary has the same hat and like socks, which I wear the socks all the time.
I got you. Okay.
Things like that.
I got you.
And in that moment, I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Performing in churches is really, really nice. And I'm not nothing on the other show. The other show was great too. I'd do it again. And I think I am doing it again. But
yeah,
performing in churches is awesome.
Sure.
So since we perform in a lot of churches, including coming up this weekend,
that's right,
we thought that we would talk about what it's like to perform in churches. Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right, quick introduction of us. I'm Adam Bush.
Chris Munch
is his name, and we're here with our pal Gary Hornstein. Risk It for the Biscuit podcast is a podcast about Chris and I. I worked at a church for 15 years. Chris worked at a church for 22 and a half years.
22 and a half
years. And we both left our jobs about the same time to pursue comedy.
That's right.
Chris is an actor and a stand-up. I'm a stand-up comedian and a writer. And so this podcast just follows our journey, and you get to learn about like how it's going and what we're doing. We live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and it's going pretty good. And then our pal Gary here, who produces our podcast, Northern Creative. Risk It for the Biscuit is sponsored in part by Northern Creative.
Thank you, Northern.
Video production, graphic design, animation. You can find their work, Gary's work, at northern.work. You should hire him because he's very good.
Have you ever been sitting there thinking, I need a video, but I don't have anybody to help me with that?
Yeah.
Or graphics.
Yeah. Or
you got a great idea.
Yes.
But you're just like, I don't know how to bring the idea to life or how to make it good. Have you thought about Northern Creative?
You have now.
You have now.
You're so much better. Why? I should let you do the promo for.
I'm just trying to.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to throw some scenarios.
I'll
in.
pay. I'll
We've
pay
all
for
been
that.
there, right?
We've all been. Listen, and look. You might be like, but is his work quality?
Right.
Well, let me give you a list.
Fair question.
That's a fair question. Let me give you a list of some of his clients.
McDonald's, Nike,
Wait a second. I wasn't gonna lie.
Waffle House.
No, I was gonna say NASA.
That's right.
Would you like a guy who's worked and been to NASA, taught astronauts how to tell better stories? Gary.
This guy has. Northern
That guy
Creative has.
Yes. Did he offend one of the people? Yes. But they still like him. Yeah.
Gary's just that kind of guy, though. He's a straight shooter.
He's a straight shooter. He tells it like it is. Yeah. But seriously, he's the best in the biz.
He's so good.
Yeah. If you need that, if you like the art and stuff from our podcast, then you're going to love his stuff. Check it out at northern.work. And feel free to check out the the copy on that website because
Ooh, you know who did it?
I know a guy who wrote that for him.
ChatGPT.
Yep. Shoot. Yes. It's also Risk It for the Biscuit is also sponsored by Looney Bin Comedy Club in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Quick plug for them. Check them out at looneybincomedy.com for their lineup of comics that are coming to Tulsa, and they're A+. We'll talk more. We'll talk more about them here in a little bit. We perform in a lot of churches.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about it. So I'll start it out like this. There's a term, clean as green, in comedy. And it means that the cleaner you are, the more money is available to you, at least at the beginning.
Sure.
Because you can perform in clean comedy nights. Most corporate events need you to be on the cleaner side. And then churches, obviously, you got to be clean.
Yeah.
We have a little bit of an advantage because we're also Christians. We also have a background in church. And so we get asked to perform at churches, sometimes on Sunday morning as like the message, like comedy and a little bit of a message. That happens pretty regularly. In fact, you're doing that this weekend. And I'm doing it in a couple of weeks in Kansas. Shout out to Kansas.
Love Kansas.
The state of Kansas. I do love Kansas.
I'm going to be in my home state of North Dakota this weekend.
That's
I'm
right.
so excited.
Yeah, that is so far.
It's very far.
So far. We're almost
Very
in
cold.
Canada.
You're very close to Canada.
Shout out to Pastor Jason Winnis.
Jason Winnis,
our
let's
good
go.
friend, who's going to have us. We're doing a comedy night on Saturday night, and then you're preaching on Sunday morning.
Sunday morning. Yep.
That's awesome. I'm leaving before you preach.
Yes, you don't. You're not interested in what I have to say.
I don't want to hear. It's your perspective.
Heard it all before.
But I had somebody reach out to me, just a fellow comic, and she said, "Hey, I did a church gig. It didn't go great.
Yeah.
And some of my material didn't hit very well." And I said, "What was your material? Or what was the joke that you didn't feel like was very good?" And she told me the joke, and it was a pretty dirty joke.
Yeah.
And it made me realize that like sorry, I hit the mic. It made me realize that like I'm used to like, I know what church clean is.
Right. Yeah.
And like not everybody does.
And I would even say the joke, and we won't share it here.
We're not going to share that
We're
joke.
family
We have
podcast.
a family podcast.
It wasn't, I mean, I don't know the whole joke. The subject matter is it's like that wouldn't be appropriate in church, even
Right.
if the joke itself isn't maybe quote unquote dirty, or you could probably do it on television.
Yeah.
But in a church, it just like that's going to make people feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah, there are levels of clean comedy. There's like you can do clean, like people would say the Tonight Show is clean,
Right.
but it really just means that you can't you can't say the F word.
Yeah.
You can't cuss a lot, and then like certain subject matter is going to be off limits.
Sure.
But it doesn't mean, but I would not say it's clean.
Right.
It's not church clean.
It's not church clean. I think that's where people maybe get the
Yeah.
They're like, what? I'm not.
You can still have innuendos in there, things like that, and
Right.
and that would be
Sexual innuendo does not play well
okay. In a church. No.
Yeah.
Then there's like a step below that, where like at my home club, the Looney Bin, they have a clean open mic night. It includes everything I just said, and maybe like a little bit more. But then like church clean, I would even say there's like dry bar clean, which the dry bar comedy channel on YouTube, like there are jokes I could make there, and they're really clean. Like there's no cussing.
Yeah.
There's no sexual innuendos. There's no, I mean, you just don't get close to any sort
What
of
about
line.
like potty humor?
You could, that's okay. Cause I tell that pooping story from when we went camping. That would be okay.
Would you tell the tampon? Would you say that?
I did on Dry Bar, and they were okay with it. I don't know if I would at a church.
Yeah.
So that's like, you go one more step.
Yeah.
Like there's a joke I make about looking like a transgender woman. I won't make that at a church. I heard Nate Bargatze say that he has a joke, and he's very clean. He doesn't even, like, if you watch his last special, he says, I don't even like saying the word sucks in my life.
Yeah.
But he said he has one joke about maybe like, I know we have kids that listen to this, so just like a lady of the evening. We'll call
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
That he's like, I don't tell that at a church.
Yeah,
because he
yeah.
will still get booked at churches sometimes.
Sure.
Yeah. So you see, it's like,
Yeah, there's just,
yeah. So like I had a friend. I'm producing a clean show that's super clean this weekend at the Looney Bin, and there's a comic who's going to do it, and he's just going to do 5 minutes. He's not a clean comic, but he'll have a clean set. He asked me, "Can I like flip the middle finger as a punchline?" And I was like, "No, no, no." So
Can I take my shirt off as a punchline?
no
Pants?
no. Yeah. So interesting how it's a lot of people don't just automatically know.
well, I think it's a cultural thing of just like what you're used to. There's, I mean, it's funny because I feel like the exact opposite, where I perform at churches. I'm very comfortable in a church setting. I know those kind of unspoken rules of just.
Well, you worked at a church for 22 and a half years.
22 and a half. I feel out of place.
Oh, sneeze from Gary.
Yes,
Sorry.
Lord. I feel out of place when I'm in like a bar or.
Oh, yeah.
Like I feel like the opposite of like.
Oh, interesting.
Like I feel like
You have a problem filthing it up.
Well, I just feel like I'm like the family section when you're looking at Netflix, which is usually what I breeze right by. Like, you know what I mean? Like I don't care about like the family entertainment.
Yeah, you're not trying to watch The Lion King 1.5.
Right, exactly. So I feel
Nothing
that
wrong
way.
with that movie, by the way.
No.
Great movie.
Fantastic animation. But like when I'm in a bar or something like that, I feel like, oh, Dad's here and like my stuff isn't edgy enough.
Have you
to,
performed
like,
in a
cut
comedy
through.
club?
I feel like I have. I don't know that I have.
I don't think maybe you have. I wonder if you would feel the same way because it's kind of a hybrid.
Yeah, I guess I never had.
Yeah.
I hadn't even realized that, but no, I haven't.
Really? Yeah.
I've never performed in an actual comedy club.
Well, it's about time.
Huh?
You know, those people, when they come, they like to laugh. It's a pretty good
That
setup.
is nice.
Yeah.
At banquets are really challenging because no one's there to see you.
Right.
They're there for the organization or whatever, and then it's like, who's this guy who's going to try to make me laugh while I'm trying to eat my salad or whatever? So there's just a lot of like things you have to cut through, and that's been very challenging.
Yeah. Didn't expect that, but I've experienced the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what's so nice about churches, and I just kind of want to give people a picture of like what that experience is like. What's so nice about churches is it's an environment where people are typically excited to laugh and don't love stand-up comedy, but don't regularly visit the clubs because they just don't want dirty comedy, or it's not really within. Like a lot of cities don't have clubs, so that's a big deal. And like, you know, a big comic doesn't come through their town but once a year or something like that. So I wanted to give people a picture of what it's like performing at a church.
Yeah.
And I should say I love performing in clubs.
Yeah.
So much. And I love performing I just love performing.
Yeah.
Even corporate events, they're a different kind of thing. I just love telling jokes and stories so much. So this is not a slight on any sort of experience. They all are unique and special. But performing in a church is a very unique experience in and of itself. And if you've never done it before and have an opportunity and can fit, you should. So like we're performing at a church in North Dakota this weekend, and they want to do something. When churches do this sort of thing, they're trying to do something unique. A lot of times it'll happen in the summer. People will be like, I'm going to be out. The pastor's like, I'm going to be out. I'm looking for something I can advertise. And I'm like, great, I'm a dry bar comic. You can advertise you got a dry bar comic coming to your church. A lot of times they want to do like maybe a Sunday morning and then like a comedy show at their church, which is really fun. And so like there've been times where I've like done a Sunday morning where I did like, they're like, we want you to do like 60% comedy and then kind of wrap it up with like a message, which I'm a Christian and I used to be a preacher. So that's easy for me. I usually talk about storytelling or storytelling in the Bible or something like that, or how to share your own story. And then at night, it's like, come back, 7:00. We're doing comedy show here at the church. And so we're doing ours Saturday comedy show, and then Sunday morning you're preaching. But they call us, ask like what we would charge. It pays a lot more than being at a club, which is very nice. And then they're covering all the travel. Typically at a different kind of event, it's all inclusive, and so you don't make quite as much. And then in your situation with this church that you're doing, you're like, I'd like to bring Adam with me. And they're like, that sounds great. So it's like double. And I've done the same with you. Like I was like, hey, I'm going to bring Chris with me. And they paid you, and they didn't even tell me they were going to pay you. Which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they'll get you 2 rooms. They'll put you up in a nice hotel. The girl texted me yesterday. I don't know if she did it to you, but she was just like, what's your favorite snacks?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, dude.
Yeah.
Come on now. And I was just like, I said, I like all of this stuff. Whatever you want to get is fine.
Yeah.
It obviously doesn't have to be all of this. And then there's always a nice point person. Like they're always checking on you. Like you got everything you need. Get an email a couple of days ahead.
I think churches, for the most part, understand and value hospitality. And
they do.
So I think that's a big part of it. Is a lot of the culture of churches is like when they have guests in, it's like they want to treat you really well.
Yeah.
Make you comfortable and all of that, which is really awesome.
Yeah, it's so great.
It's really great to receive that.
Yeah, it is. And if you're listening to podcasts and you've ever been a preacher or like an itinerant minister or anything, it's very similar.
Yeah,
that sort of thing. And so there's typically somebody, like there'll be someone there we're flying in at separate times, but like there's somebody going to pick us up and be like, hey, do you need anything to eat? And then take you to the hotel and be like, whatever you want to do, you just let us know. There'll be 2 rooms, I'm sure. So we don't have to stay in the same room together. And then the shows are nice because they're just like, the people are here for you for the comedy. However long you want to do or however short, how do you want to set it up? They're very open to request on like, hey, what if we did it like I've been there before. I'm like, can I actually get a mic stand that's straight? Can I get a stool? Like it's just so hospitable. Yeah. And
Wonderful.
then the shows, I haven't had a lot of bad shows at a church. It's really fun. Churches nowadays have pretty solid production. And so like although ceilings are pretty high and the rooms are fairly large, they can turn the lights down and they're listening. They're there to listen. Yeah. I had a church not long ago. They had a banquet and then the comedy. They did the banquet out in the lobby, and then they said, "All right, everybody, we're going in for the comedy show." And then they came in and they're just like all looking at me. Like, we're ready to laugh.
Yeah. Well, I think also there are people that are used to sitting and listening to someone talk for periods of time,
long period of time.
Yeah. So I think that even just attention spans, like all that kind of stuff is another reason that church audiences are usually really, really fun.
Yeah. And one thing I am learning though, because I perform in clubs so much, I can't be as mean. In the churches. Gary, I took Gary to San Antonio, and I started making fun of this couple. And like afterwards, Gary was like, I've talked about this on podcasts before, but Gary was like, you're pretty mean to them.
Yeah.
Like it was a costume contest and they were dressed up and I was just kind of belittling their choice.
Yeah.
And in a club, that would go over great. And so this last time that I did a church, there were these 2, what looked like a couple sitting together, and I said, "Ma'am," "Are you his wife?" And she goes, "No," like real big.
Yeah.
And everybody laughed, and I was just like, "You're really emphatic about that no." And everybody laughed, and I was like, I really want to dig into this.
Yeah.
And I just heard Gary in the back of my head going, "Watch yourself," because I don't know who these people are, and I don't know what their story is. At the end, somebody came up to me and said, "Oh man, I wish you would have asked more questions because they used to date and they broke up for like maybe going to different colleges, but they're always together still, and everybody wants them to get back together," which we've all experienced that, breaking up and still hanging out with your ex-girlfriend. And so I was just like, so trying to find the balance.
Right.
Like,
of what,
not making fun of them, but still being like, I would like to know more about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, it's so much about just the way you ask and trying not to be condescending. I saw Chris Gethard ask the audience a question that I thought was really interesting, where he just goes, he just had a question. He's like, are you prepared for the apocalypse? Just trying to get people's honest answer. But I thought what was interesting is that he would always go, no, I'm not going to make fun of you. What do you like, sincerely? Like, I'm not trying to like make fun of your answer. I legitimately just want to hear your answer and why.
Yeah.
And like, I just thought it was really interesting that he was very careful to be like, I'm not going to make fun of you. I just want to hear your answer.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's interesting how it just kind of diffuses that, like, because typically when you see a comedian talking to an audience member online, there's this exchange or making fun of, or the audience member's heckling and the comedian put him in her place. Whatever.
Right.
It's like this, like this conflict. And I thought it was interesting how he kind of handled it in more of like I'm not going to make fun of you. I just want to hear your answer.
Yeah.
And then he made fun of her. No, I'm just kidding.
Whenever before, like right at the beginning of my comedy journey, I've told this story before, but I did I would during the pandemic attend Mike Birbiglia's Zoom comedy shows. And most of the time, I went like 3 times. Most of the time he would spot me and say, hey everybody, this is Adam. He was my understudy. And I always thought that was really fun for me. But one time I texted him and said, hey, that was really fun. And he said, thanks for being part of the show. It wasn't until later that I realized, it's actually really helpful for him.
Yeah.
Because he's working out an hour. And like, just to have
something to kind of riff on.
That's why, in case you're wondering if you've ever heard crowd work, that's why comics do crowd work, because they need more time. And they're trying to work stuff out, but maybe they don't have a complete hour yet. Also, it's fun. Crowd work is fun. So, any final notes about churches?
Man, so I'd say, so we've talked about how wonderful they are to perform there. How do you go about booking at a church, or what can you do to kind of maybe position yourself to be able to do more churches?
You tell me.
I would say, I mean, I think it's like, are you a clean comic, or are you, like, there's always a part of me that kind of goes like, well, I can do a few minutes of clean, which is fine, but it's kind of like, that's not really who you are though.
Right. Yeah.
And so I feel like there are advantages to being in the clubs all the time, and there's advantages to being in churches. And I feel like it's not that you have to do one or the other, but I think there's an exchange there of just like, well, I'm going to be true to who I am.
Yeah.
And so how do you book a church? I was going to say, produce clean content.
Yes. Yeah.
And so if you're doing stuff online, creating content that church people would think is funny, then you're going to be more obviously apt to book a church, or be able to send a church something and be like, here's what I do. And I think another thing is, if you, I don't know if this is worth saying, but just like, I really love the church. Like, I want to serve the church.
Oh yeah, me too.
And so like when I'm talking to a pastor or something like that, it's like, I'm always approaching it from, how do I help you?
Yeah.
And how do I help your people?
Yeah.
And so I try to have a very service oriented mindset when I'm talking to a pastor. And I think that pastors like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that helps you. It's like, I'm just here to help make this night as good as it can be. And so that might mean speaking up and going like, hey, I actually think this is kind of a bad idea. Here's how, could I offer a suggestion?
Oh yeah.
How to
Especially
plan the night
on the order. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. How to plan the night or something like that. It's just serving the night and serving that church. So I don't know how to fake that, I guess is what I'm saying. So if you're coming from a situation where like, I'm just looking to kind of pick up a nice paycheck because churches pay better,
that might not go great.
That might not go great.
I think if that was your mindset, you might fit better being an opener for someone who performs in churches a lot.
Yeah.
Because you could get a paycheck and you don't have to do as much time.
Yeah.
And it is nice because most of the time when I perform in a church, they asked me to do an hour by myself.
Yeah.
I'll usually suggest to them that we drop it down to 35 or 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But that is like, that might be a good spot for you. Find a comic who is doing churches.
Yeah.
But the great thing about churches is you get to do a lot of time. That is one great thing about it. Dustin Nickerson, who we've had on the podcast, he started in a lot of churches, and we're getting the light from Gare. Look at that.
Look at that.
He said him and Taylor Tomlinson, who started out in churches, both said like it made him good real fast because they were doing so many churches and doing it all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I would say if you want to perform in churches, then I would just say if you're like if you go to church and you're doing comedy, just ask your church. Just say, hey, I've been doing comedy. I got a friend.
Yeah.
Would you be interested? We could do a clean comedy night.
We did several.
So many.
There's so many free shows.
Oh, so many.
Yeah, just like in one of the side rooms at our church.
Children's church classroom.
Yeah, we did a children's church classroom.
Pick a really small room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was so fun.
The first one we did, it was kind of last minute. We did it with our comedian friend, Isaac Whitty. We just put the event on Facebook.
Yeah.
And 300 people showed
more
up.
than 300, wasn't it?
It was
was something. The room was overflowing. It was
there were people who had to sit in the hallway, couldn't see it, but only heard it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a fun place to be.
Yeah.
So, all right, we won't do anything else because we're out of time. Gary, anything else you want to say?
Do you guys do altar calls? You're at the...
That's funny. If you're preaching, you might.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Depends on what the pastor would want to do, but I wouldn't do it at a comedy show.
I bet a lot of people don't know what an altar call is.
Probably not.
Yeah.
If you don't know what an altar call is, hit us up in the comments.
Send us a question, altar call in the subject. Email us, riskitpod@gmail.com. Hey, let us not forget to push our sponsor, who we're very thankful for.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Looney Bin Comedy Club in Tulsa, Oklahoma. To check out their lineup of comics coming throughout the year, you can go to looneybincomedy.com, click on the Tulsa tab, and there are a couple great ways you can save money. On Wednesday night, it is service industry night. Woo! If you work within the service industry, wait, staff, bartending.
That's also first responders
and first responders. Call up the club and you can get a free or discounted ticket. You have to call them though. Ladies' night is on Thursday night. Same thing.
Ladies' night.
If you're a lady,
yeah,
then you can call up the club and check that and get a free or discounted ticket. But don't sleep on Looney Bin. It's a great club in Tulsa. Not a lot of cities have a club.
Yep.
We have a very good club that brings in great comedians.
Top notch.
Often you will experience a comic who tours theaters come through the Looney Bin at the beginning of them working on their hour to smaller venue and get to hear them working stuff out. So check it out, looneybincomedy.com. Tell them Risk It sent you.
Tell them old Adam and Chris sent you.
Okay, thanks for following. Like and subscribe, and share the podcast episode with people that you love or hate. You can follow me at Hey Adam Bush on all the socials. Chris Munch Comedy on all the socials. Follow Gary's work at northern.work on Instagram, or you can check out northern.work on the old internet. And don't forget, August 26th. August 26th, Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm opening up for comedian Dustin Nickerson at the Bricktown Comedy Club. You can get tickets at dustinnickerson.com.
I will be in attendance.
You will be in attendance. Gary, are you in town?
I'll have to check my calendar.
Gary's going to be in attendance. We're all going to be there. You got to come. Let's pack it out. It's going to be a great show. It's 13 and plus, so it's a family-friendly show. It's a clean show. And Steve Rogers, I think, is going to be on the show. If you've ever seen him, he's a comedian whose name is also Captain America's name. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. So, yep, that's it.
All right.
Love you. Goodbye.
See ya.
Bye.